G'day guys, thank you again for joining me. Today I wanted to talk about something I've been incredibly passionate about throughout my whole writing career, and that's censorship and writing and how the mainstream media uses their war of words against us. It occurred to me only the other day when I was writing the draft of my next novel, The Rotation, when I got my flip cards out to help with my writer's block, that the concepts on the flip cards are the same concepts that mainstream media are actually using to sway our opinions and our judgments. Now, I think it's very important to try and deconstruct some of these concepts. I don't have a lot of time. I've actually got to get back to editing, but I thought while this is fresh in my mind, I would just show you some of the flip cards that I use and the key concepts on it and how mainstream media tend to use and abuse these. Now, I can't recommend highly enough, if you are an author or a journalist or a mainstream alternative, whatever, these flip cards. I bought these some years ago in Australia for about 30 Aussie dollars. I don't know if you can still get them, but if you could maybe get them secondhand or on eBay, what have you. It's called the Observation Deck. It's helped me out throughout all the novels that I've written, all the essays and articles that I've written, right throughout university, everything. They're absolutely brilliant, an invaluable source for authors. But unfortunately, these key concepts, which were written and designed for mainly your fiction authors, are now seeping their way into the mainstream media, which is an alarm bell in itself. Mainstream media, once upon a time, should have been about the truth, should always be non-biased, and just simply presents the facts as they're found and leaving it to the audience to determine what they believe and not believe. These days, as we all know, this isn't the case anymore. And I think this explains the rise and fall of legacy media as well, and independent media. The main reason that the mainstream media, I feel, are literally nosediving in their ratings is because we've got this new environment where the independent media have taken over this area to analyse and dissect all the untruths presented by the mainstream media. I think the mainstream media they've always been a tool used for propaganda, but you could always you had a select few that you could rely on for the truth, and they've lost their way. And I don't see how they can ever find their way back, to be honest. Their sponsorship now comes from corporate government and big corporate organisations. You know, we all know the culprits, no point mentioning them here. And once you become reliant on that sort of income and ecosystem, you've got no escape. Even if you wanted to, there's just no escaping. There really isn't. The people that control the finances control you, and if you try and deviate in any way, they will shut you down. Hence why the mainstream media is just getting worse and worse and worse. They are fighting, in essence, for their survival. Anyway, I digress. I am passionate about this, as you can see. But I just wanted to touch on a few of these cards. And I think it's really important that when you read a news article from the mainstream media, and I'm going to say something that's really unpopular right now, but it is so important to read the mainstream media and not to just absorb mindlessly what they're throwing at you, but you need to prepare for what's coming, guys. You need to understand what their agenda is, and they are not shy in telling you what their agenda is. So use it to your advantage. They're showing you their playbook. They can't help it. If they don't show you their playbook, and if they don't warm the crowd up to what it is that they have in store for us, then that snap shock horror is going to have the people turn against them. And that is why they tell you what their plans are. They're warming you slowly up like the frog in the proverbial hot water where the temperature's gradually turned. That's what they're doing. Okay, so it's, don't think that they're hiding anything, or they're not. They have they have to warm you up so as they don't shock you. Okay, so when you do actually approach a mainstream article, you do have to approach it with caution. You need to contemplate what the title is suggesting to you. You need to understand that there is obfuscation in the title and that they are setting a narrative. It's psychological warfare when you are reading a title. They're setting a narrative before you even hit that first paragraph. And they're actually shaping your biases without you even realizing it half the time. So just be aware of the gesture that they're presenting in the title and how they're using it, and the emotive context of it all, so that you can go in open-eyed. Okay, they are looking to create conflict within yourself. They are looking to raise the stakes within your own narratives, and they basically, when a journalist is writing, they are thinking architecturally. They are thinking how they're going to structure this to evoke that emotional response, and how they're going to construct their arguments so that it appears that you as a reader are autonomous, and it appears that you as a reader have full control over what you're thinking. However, when they're structurally, I'll walk that back a bit. When they're thinking architecturally in how they structure their essay piece or their paper or what have you, they're setting limits. They're not going to allow you to stray too far from their narrative, that they really are closing in on the limits, and what is presented in that paper will sway how you think. So what I'm trying to say is, in a very convoluted way, is that mainstream media, when they ask a rhetorical question, they're always going to follow it up with another rhetorical question from the same side of the argument. They're not going to present two different sides of the argument, guys. So just be aware that even though it appears that you have full autonomy in how you're reading this particular article, it is not the case. They are, every single sentence, trying to sway your opinions, and they are trying to formulate your biases, and they are trying to take control of things. Okay. One way to navigate this as well is that if you are finding that you are asking yourself questions while you're reading a certain article and those questions are not being answered, I think it's a sure sign that it's an actual question that they are deliberately trying to avoid, and they are deliberately trying to obfuscate. Now, if you're thinking of a question that is not present, go hunt it out in your independent media. That's what they're there for. They're there to analyze and basically tear apart, in essence, what the mainstream media are trying to spoon feed you. Okay, so it's very important that when you realize those signals, that you go to the independent alternative media sites that you rely on to try and get a bigger picture of the situation at hand. Okay. Now, the other thing that you probably need to be aware of is that the mainstream media right now are currently building a new history. If I'm sure you're all aware of books such as 1984, the great George Orwell shone a light on this through his main protagonist, Winston, aptly named after Winston Churchill. He was having a bit of a play there, I guess. Now, Winston, if you don't know, if you haven't actually read the book, he's a main character that works in the government media department. And his main job is to change the narrative and memory hole, as they call it, memory hole the facts, so that they can reconstruct history on a daily basis. mainstream media is doing that right now. You need to be aware of your history. You need to, the best thing that I have found as a resource for history, guys, are books from my high school classes on history from 25-30 years ago. Books that haven't been altered, books that were published in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s before all of this crap happened. Go back to the old resources. Go and actually visit a library and physically open up a book with pages that has a publication pre-2000s, because anything after that I find is conflicting. They do change the history as they go to suit their narrative, and it is currently happening. So I just wanted to bring some of these to your attention. When I've got a bit more time, I will delve through them in a lot more depth, probably in a fictional context as well as a mainstream context, as well as, versus an independent context. But in essence, they are shaping a narrative. They are socially engineering groupthink so that they can take control of the population's thought processes. It's a way to establish and mold a narrative that, look, when you have groupthink happen, I don't think I need to tell you what's happened in the last 4 years and how we ended up in some very dark times. We're almost in a dark ages of information again. Groupthink is a very, very, very powerful tool, and that's why when you hear people say we need to wake the masses up, that's so we can avoid groupthink, guys. It's so that we can take back what's ours, our freedoms and liberties and our autonomy and our right to think without being judged and a right to speak without being judged, so long as it doesn't hurt anyone else physically. I mean, at the end of the day, hurting someone's emotions, okay, just get over it. Build a bridge, grow a spine. It's okay. If you don't agree with someone, walk away. Sticks and stones may break my bones. Don't get me started on it. But anyway, what I'm saying is groupthink is a dangerous thing. Groupthink is a social engineering tool that the mainstream media are using against us. So when you do read your mainstream media articles, just be aware that that is their ultimate goal. Anyway, I'll leave it there for now. I've got to get back to my editing. I've got a full day today. I will try and discuss this in further depth at a later date. And in the meantime, stay free, be aware of what you read, and take care.